Hey, this is Miss Cooper here with your part 2 commentary video for chapter 10. And we're still dealing with the world in between these wars, looking at the way things are happening as the aftermath of imperialism that started with the Industrial Revolution. How are these countries getting along after the foreign influences? Okay, some of them are doing okay. Some of them are turning to cocaine. Some of them are becoming dependent on foreign products. So there's a lot going on. Some are having religious battles because religions change and religions are influenced by other religions. So this part 2 video is going to deal with this document that I provided about the Mexican Revolution. And I've got some things highlighted on mine that I'm going to hope that you get a chance to highlight. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'm going to read enough of it to summarize and give you the gist of what this document is trying to tell you. This is specifically dealing with the Mexican Revolution. When we talked about the challenges in Latin America, a challenge is basically, what's happening that's shaking things up, and how are we dealing with that? How is that country dealing with it? How is the rest of the world dealing with it? So let's just kind of start reading and summarizing as I go along. So it says here, the Mexican Revolution was from 1910 to 1920, a long and bloody struggle among several factions, not just one, in constantly shifting alliances, which resulted ultimately in the end of the 30-year dictatorship in Mexico and the establishment of a constitutional republic. The revolution began against the background of widespread dissatisfaction with the elitist and oligarchical policies of Porfirio Diaz. Let me say this right. Porfirio Diaz. And I could be pronouncing it wrong. These foreign names can be pronounced a lot of different ways, but you have the document and you have the name D-I-A-Z, Diaz, that favored wealthy landowners and industrialists. When Diaz in 1908 said that he welcomed the democratization of Mexican political life and appeared ambivalent about running for his 7th re-election as president in 1910, Francisco Madero emerged as the leader of the anti-re-electionistas and announced his candidacy. Diaz had him arrested and declared himself the winner after a mock election in June. But Madero, released from prison, published his Plan de San Luis Potosí from San Antonio, Texas, calling for a revolt on November 20th. The revolt was a failure, but it kindled revolutionary hope in many quarters. In the north, Pascual Orozco and Pancho Villa mobilized their ragged armies and began raiding government garrisons in the south. Emiliano Zapata waged a bloody campaign against the local rural political bosses. They were called Saquiques. In the spring of 1911, the revolutionary forces took Juarez, Ciudad Juarez, and forced Diaz to resign and declared Madero the president. So we've got this power struggle about who's going to rule Mexico. Somebody had been there for all these years. Somebody was a 30-year dictator. Somebody wanted democratization. Somebody wanted to not let this guy get reelected for a 7th time. Okay, somebody get somebody arrested. These are all things that we're just seeing and just reading. Okay, the names, don't get caught up in the names, but you can underline them so if you see them again, you'll know what they're connected to, what they do. You got Pancho Villa, which is going to be a major name in a minute, mobilizing and putting together and raiding garrisons. So anyway, they forced Diaz to resign and declared Madero the president. Madero's regime faltered from the start. Zapata turned against him. The same guy that was acting like, oh, I'm with you now, turned against him, angered at his failure to effect the immediate restoration of land to dispossessed Indians. Orozco, initially a supporter of Maduro, was also dissatisfied with the slow pace of reform under the new government and led a revolutionary movement in the north. The U.S. government then turned against Maduro as well, fearing that the new president was too conciliatory to the rebel groups and concerned about the threat that civil war in Mexico was posing to American business interests there. Tensions reached a peak when yet another faction of rebel forces led by Felix Diaz, the former dictator's nephew, clashed with the federal troops in Mexico City under the command of Victoriano Huerta. On February 18th of 1913, after the ninth day of the Millet, known as La Decena Tragica, the 10 tragic days. La Decena Tragica. Okay? Huerta and Diaz met in the office of U.S. Ambassador Henry Lane Wilson and signed the so-called Pact of the Embassy, in which they agreed to conspire against Maduro and to install Huerta as president. Huerta assumed the presidency the following day after arresting Maduro, who was assassinated a few days later. Opposition to Huerta's drunken and despotic rule grew in the north, and an uneasy alliance was formed between Pancho Villa, Alvaro Obregón, and Venustiano Carranza, whose Plan de Guadalupe called for Huerta's resignation. In the spring and summer of 1914, the rebel forces converged on Mexico City, forcing Huerta into exile. So this is close to the end, but I don't want to go too long in this video. But do your noun and verb activity. Get your, pencil and circle those proper nouns and take that same pencil and put a square around those verbs. Whenever you have difficult language, foreign names, things like that, check for those capital letters because it's still going to tell you who did something. When did they do it? Where did they do it? What did they do? So this is why you want to use that skill when you have a document that might be difficult to read because there are foreign names and foreign places. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't understand the English words. Okay, you should understand from paragraph to paragraph that, hey, somebody was a dictator. Somebody didn't like somebody else and they got them arrested, and, because they wanted to be the leader. And then somebody gets somebody else to get on their side to get rid of somebody so that they can be the leader. And next thing you know, somebody gets assassinated after they became the leader. So you got a lot going on in this Mexican Revolution. So take this document and really highlight and annotate and, get a lot out of it. The videos I'm going to provide with this should provide a little bit more clarity so that you can better understand. But thank you for being here.